Yesterday, in the dead of the night, God wakes me up and gives me a solution, or through divine wisdom, or through divine intelligence. God presents to me a solution for one of the biggest problems bedeviling Kenya right now, which I shall call public debt. Yesterday evening, our president, William Ruto, on national TV, he says that Kenya, we are deep in debt. That Kenyan's debt right now stands north of 10 trillion shillings. Just imagine that, 10 trillion shillings. And as I thought about that figure, the president said that he's stuck in between a rock and a hard place. That either for us to finance our budget moving forward, either we go and borrow more money, or we raise taxes for us to raise the money that is required to run the budget in the next financial year. And as I was thinking about these things, God brought into mind a proverb, a proverb in the book of Proverbs 22:7. And it says this, let me read it verbatim. It says this, that poor people, who is us, poor people are slaves of the rich, the lenders. Borrow money and you are the lender's slave. Borrow money and you are the lender's slave. So Solomon, in his wisdom, he shares a warning and says that the person who borrows money, the borrower, becomes a slave to the lender. And I want you guys to focus on the word slave. So slavery was abolished in the world in the 17th century. But there's modern day slavery in terms of loans, And what happens is this. Slavery was a fact whereby one individual owned another person and they became their property. So us who we borrow, we actually become the property of the lender. Number two, the slave had no right to any wages. That you will work and get nothing in return. Case in point, Kenya. Next thing is this, that the lender, who is a slave driver, sets the rules of the game, how the game is to be played. And at the end of the day, the house always wins. So there's an old proverb, an old adage that says this, that if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. So for Kenya, the solution is not more debt. The solution is not even to raise more taxes. So what is the solution to the problem of debt in Kenya? How are we going to raise our revenue? And allow me to provide to you two solutions that God just illuminated to me. So the number one solution is this. It is pulled from the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. So Jesus here, through a miracle, he uses 2 loaves, 2 fish, and 5 loaves of bread to feed a multitude of 5,000 men. And at the end, once the men and the women have eaten to their full, Jesus gives some explicit instructions to his disciples. And allow me to read what Jesus says, because herein lies the solution. So it's in John 6:12-13. When they all had enough to eat, they were filled. He said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and filled 12 basketfuls with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. So Jesus here, in his brilliance, people have fed, about 20,000 people. They are fed, they are full, they're just reclined in the rocks, in the grass, just having fun. And Jesus here instructs the disciples, go and collect every last piece of leftover, Let nothing go to waste. And so here Jesus gives us a secret that one of the biggest problems bedeviling Kenya is that Kenya runs an over bloated budget, that there are so many areas of wastage. So much money is just being pilfered and wasted out. So one of the things that we need to do is that one of the measures is called austerity, what the president called austerity measures. That will mean that we have to be lean, all excesses, everything that doesn't add value to the people of Kenya must be let go. If it is ministries, if it is the spouses' dockets, if it is other public servants who are not directly involved in making the lives of Kenyans better. All this must be cut off. All these excesses, all these wastages must be cut off. Number 2 is this, from the story this, that Jesus, he instructs his disciples. As he prays over fish and multiplies. And then he gives his disciples basketfuls of fish and bread to go and distribute to the people who are hungry, who are waiting for the meal. So God showed me what is happening in Kenya is this, that once these disciples who are public servants, once they get hold of the basket that is supposed to be distributed to the hungry people, then they begin to grab fish, grab bread and stuff their pockets with it, And by the time the basket is getting to the people who are meant to eat the food, there's barely anything left in the basket. That is a problem of corruption and being greedy for gain. We must take public service to serving the public, because public service now has become the fastest get-rich-quick scheme. That if you want to get rich, just join public service. You'll be a millionaire in months. So here the disciples, they forget their own needs, they forget themselves. They go and serve the populace, and they serve them until they are filled. And at the end of the time, Jesus tells them to collect the leftovers. And then there are 12 basketfuls. Remember the number 12. The disciples were 12 in number. So at the end of the day, after the disciples have served and given themselves, each of them got to go home with a whole basketful of bread and fish. Much, much more than their needs. That will mean that if the public servants will just serve the public and forget about being greedy for gain and corruption, at the end of the day, each of them will get a basket full of much more than they need to take home with. Number second solution, I think this is where the juiciness is. So Jesus, he's accosted by the tax collectors, of his day. And they accuse him, the carrier of his day, they accuse him that Jesus and the disciples are not paying tax. Yeah? And Jesus answers them and he gives a solution, a very brilliant solution. But Kenya, if you can just implement what Jesus shared here, then I believe we'll be on our way to become a first world country. So let me read for you in John 17:27. So Jesus said this, but so that we may not cause offense, by not paying tax, he instructs Peter this, go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish that you catch, open its mouth, and inside of it you will find a 4-drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours. And this was so brilliant. That here's the thing, that Jesus tells Peter, go, he instructs him on how to go and fish. Yeah? Once he does the fishing, he catches fish. And inside the fish, he opens his mouth and he finds a coin to pay the taxes. At the end of the day, he will pay the tax, but he'll also have the whole fish to go home and eat for him and his family. And herein lies the solution. That one of the biggest problems of Kenya right now is that we are obsessed with revenue collection. That every department in Kenya has been tasked with the burden of raising as much income in forms of taxes from the populace. While Jesus gave a model that we can model as Kenya, that teach them first how to fish. Teach them first how to go and get the fish. And when they get the fish, then the tax that you need is inside the fish. And at the end of the day, the people will not only pay tax, but they'll have also fish to carry home. So what is happening in Kenya right now is that people are being coerced or forced to pay tax. While at the end of the day, we have no fish on the table. This will never work. Herein lies the solution. That the government of Kenya should focus all of its energy, all of its resources, all of its personnel on teaching and educating the populace, especially the young population, on how to start and run small businesses. That the secret to us becoming self-sustaining, as an economy, is for us to focus on the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which is called the MSME. So a case in point is this. So in the US a few years back, they were caught with the same dilemma we are in. That the government of the day wasn't able to provide enough jobs to absorb all of the young people who are being churned out by the schools and the universities. So they came up with a brilliant model, what I shall call the lemonade stand culture, whereby they say this: what if we begin teaching our young children, how to become entrepreneurs through having a lemonade stand, just selling lemonade, begin to teach them about the business ethic, begin teaching them how to start and run a small business. What if we inculcate it in our curriculum, in primary school, in secondary school, in campus, post-campus? What if we make America be an entrepreneurial nation? What happened in a few years' time? America rose to become the biggest economy in the world. That economies are not run by, by taxes. Economies are run by production. One of the things that the Kenyan government should do right now is to begin to set up what I shall call entrepreneurial hubs, all over the country. Let's begin setting up entrepreneurial hubs in the wards. They have only one mission: to teach the young people how to start and run small business. And then from there, in our curriculum, in our CBC curriculum, for us to begin to inculcate studies on how to start business, how to run business. And then afterwards, as I finish this, one of the most brilliant things is we had a program called Be Your Own Boss, BYOB and GIJERI, which I believe some were run by private companies. The government then should take over this, and make this become pilot projects, that the young people who are going on the streets, the Gen Zs, the millennials, who do not have jobs, the government is not big enough to absorb all of them. But if they can train these people to become entrepreneurs, not only will they save a whole generation, change families, change generations, but they'll also create employment for millions and millions of people. When we went to the US at the beginning of this year, I was mesmerized that everywhere I went, there were signs written, "We are hiring." They have the problem of not enough labor. And I believe that Kenya, we can get there if only we change our thinking from being revenue collection driven to being revenue creation driven. I hope this has been a blessing to you. Till next time, God bless.